Mold can be a really scary word, but it doesn't have to be. It can range from just a small little spot that you can use some bleach to take care of, and that might be because somebody wasn't running the bathroom vent fan and there was a lot of condensation and it created a little bit of mildew, and it may not even be mold, and you just spray it with some bleach, wipe it down, and it's gone. Could be as little as that, maybe even just a little bit of sheetrock that needs to be cut out. Nothing really further needs to be done, but it can, if gone untreated for a long time, grow into something a lot more extreme, where it costs thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars to remedy, where you're cutting out lots of material and bringing in an ozone machine to remedy it. So it's really just about figuring out what level we're at and then coming up with a solution, but it doesn't need to be a deal breaker on a real estate transaction. It rarely comes up, and so when it does, it's because the general inspector has found something that he thinks we need to investigate further. So maybe there was condensation in the case that I'm going to show you here shortly, or there was water penetration from the outside, a roof leak, a hole in the wall, and water was in there and for an extended period of time, which allowed something to grow. Now, the inspector uses the word organics. Often I'll maybe use the word mildew, especially if I'm on the seller side, because mold is a scary word, until it actually gets tested and it comes back confirmed that it's mold. We're not entirely sure what it is. Of course, there's different types of mold, and mold is everywhere. I mean, it's in the air right now, so we're really looking for, if there's mold in the air, how does it compare to the base level, which is what's outside? Since it does come up pretty rarely, I thought we have an opportunity. I'm out there with a mold inspector. I'm gonna just record in the field so you guys can get a feel for what a mold inspection looks like and goes into it. Here you go.
That I'll probably recommend is for them to go ahead and remove the styrofoam here.
Yep.
And replace that, but that's not a big deal. So right now I'm just doing moisture testing, and then I'm going to move on to doing actual sampling. And the way sampling works is, again, we'll be doing like a comparative test. So I'll be getting samples outdoors, and then we'll send those to the lab and we'll compare outdoor mold levels to indoor mold levels and see if they're relatively even. That's what we're looking for. Okay, doke?
Yeah, and so this card over here says control.
Right, so what I'm using that for is to record what we call control reading. So a control reading is essentially the moisture content of material under normal conditions. So, and then we compare control to areas of concern. Yeah, so what I'm doing right now is I just want to get some general ideas of what the indoor conditions are so I can have that recorded and determine if that's going to make it factor into my findings. So right now I'm taking humidity readings. I'm also taking indoor temperature and just indoor condition readings to include dry bulb, wet bulb, humidity, dew point. All these conditions of the indoor air can affect air quality.
You're doing your outdoor sample now?
Right. I'm taking a few control samples, and I'm wearing protective equipment, not because I'm concerned about the material itself, but I don't want to affect the controls by having any sort of items on my hands or breathing on the control that could affect what the lab technicians see when I send it off.
So I should not breathe too closely to you?
Yeah. No heavy breathing next to my lab.
What?
No heavy breathing next to my lab controls, please.
So I don't even know if you can see this with the lighting, but it's just basically some tape strips, huh?
Yeah, it's just, this is actually called a tape sample. So you're just picking up portions of what's naturally in the environment. So a lab technician can then put this under a microscope and they literally will just count how many spores they find. And depending on the spores and the type of spores, that will then become the control to let you know what natural mold levels are surrounding the structure that you're investigating.
So this is where there was some mold found, and so they've removed any affected areas, and basically the culprit was at the vent, which was right here, was not installed properly. So we had cold air that was getting blown like into here, and then it created condensation and over time mold. So everything's looking good now though. We requested that they allow us in once everything was removed, that we do a air test to make sure that there was no mold in the air, and so that the buyer feels really comfortable buying this, knowing that there's no evidence of mold. So that's where we are now. And then once that clears, they'll go ahead and reinstall new ductwork, put a new air handler in. The air handler was failing, so it wasn't the fact that there was mold in the air handler, just that it was needed to be replaced anyway. So that's what's going on here.